before coaching, you were also into poker, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So
how did that transition go?
To be honest, the transition was pretty smooth. So going back in time when I was 18, 19, I started playing poker. Right now I'm 31, so it's been some time. So I was a professional for 7, 8 years. And then at some point I decided that I just didn't want to continue with it and went into league. And the thing is that I was a high stakes player and I coached many high stakes players too. So what happened is that I got my way of working in poker, and then I just transform it or make a transition of this information and this methodology into league. And to be honest, it worked pretty good because the kind of the psychological profiles of poker professionals are kind of similar to league. And even though the games are different, there's a very important similar component that is you have to make decisions with incomplete information. So in League of Legends is the fog of war, and in poker is just, let's say in Hold'em you have two cards in your hand that you see, but then you don't see the rest. So you have to be all the time making estimations, estimating ranges in poker, and then estimating what's going on with the map movement and so on in league. So the transition was very good, and in 1 year, more or less, actually a bit more than a year, I went from being a professional poker player to being part of Fnatic.
Okay, cool. So I'm curious, how did you even make that jump? Because I feel like for a lot of people that are in something completely different or might not have the exact, I put in quotes, exact experience when it comes to like League of Legends coaching, how did you actually make that jump? Because I think especially as spectators, you just came out of nowhere. I don't know if that's actually true or if you had connections. How did that all happen?
I kind of came from nowhere. That's actually true. Yeah. So what I did is at some point I was like, okay, I'm too bored of playing poker. Let's go into something that's more fun. And it sounds random, but I was like, okay, I really enjoy playing League, so let's go professional in League. And at that time, I think I was like silver or something like this. I just played casually and I enjoyed the game, you know? So in 3 months, I went from silver to diamond 3. And from that point, and to make it clear, this was like my job. I was like playing League 12 hours a day, studying the game, watching VODs constantly, analyzing my own games, learning from the top challenger Korean players. And so it was not just like I go to my chair and I grind the game and I enjoy it. It was like me trying to become good.
Yeah, and everything was intentional, basically, that you were doing.
Exactly, yeah. Everything was intentional. So there was a point that I felt that I was not terrible playing the game, and I was ready to play S5. And I started contacting players in a Spanish forum, and I started playing like not really competitive, but with other 4 guys and doing some trials. And I realized that most players that were at my level had no clue about the game. Like they really knew nothing, but mechanically they were so much better than me. And while I was working on my solo queue grind, I forced myself to play the 5 roles and to learn multiple champions on every role, because I really wanted to not only become a good player, but actually master the game and understand everything that I could. So there was a point that realizing that if I was just mid-diamond, so I was actually bad. I could not compete at that level. I was thinking, okay, so if these players that know nothing about the game are already better than me, how long is it going to take for me to actually reach the top? Maybe the game disappears before I reach the top level, because I didn't want to be a professional. I wanted to be one of the best professionals as a player. So at that point I said, okay, so let's go into coaching, because I understand the game so much deeper already than this level, and my poker background, I already have. I think at that time, I had already like 2,000 hours of coaching in poker, on coaching high stakes players. So I had a lot of background on coaching on poker. So I said, okay, probably I can do the transition. And like in 1 month, I started coaching a professional team here in Spain, and I coached that team for 4 months, something like this. It was it was a first division team here in Spain, and I created a YouTube channel. And I did some content. I opened a blog, did some content too, and started tweeting and all this. And not much later, I got picked up by Fnatic. So it was
Wow.
I was basically an unknown and got picked up. But I think that all this transition happened because I actually was a real coach before becoming a coach. And most league coaches are players and then transition into coaches. I was a coach for many years already, so I had a head start on that side.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it sounds like you did bring in like applicable skills, and it just took you transitioned really well, and you were really actually prepared for it. It's not like, who is this poker player coming in to coach Fnatic, a League of Legends team?
Yeah,
Okay.
and for example, during my poker career, there was a 7 month period where I was coaching an office of 25 players from
Wow.
mid stakes to high stakes, and I was 24/7 coaching. Like I was not even playing poker; I was only coaching. And there were other periods where I had like imagine a boot camp, let's say, but the boot camp was 3 months, and this was with also high stakes players. And I did 2 times 2, and I coached around the world, traveled and coached different offices. So I coached hundreds of players. So I had a extensive experience coaching poker players.
Wow, that's cool. So another question: when we think about coaches, especially